بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الغافرين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. So continuing with the next question that we are going to speak about is buying cars, whether we are going to buy them from banks or from financial companies. There are lots of companies who offer actually a service of selling cars on installments. And banks sometimes some of the banks do that. But what is the transaction actually that is acceptable in Islam for buying cars from any of these financial institutions by installments? So we have many types. The best case scenario, or the best type, which is 100% Islamic and nobody can argue about it, is actually the bank owns car yard where they have cars and they sell directly to the customer. So they actually buy cars from the market, put them in their yard, and then whoever wants to come and check the cars and take that car and buy it by installments directly from that company which owns the cars. And that might be the financial company that owns the cars. This is the situation, for example, of the Kuwait Finance House in Kuwait. And they have like car yards everywhere and people will buy directly from them. Now in other areas around the world, even maybe including here in Australia, the Islamic finance, for example, or any other financial company who offers selling cars may have the option of the customer will come to them, ask them, I want to buy this car, so he will bring the car with him from a different owner, and he will ask that I want to buy that car. The Islamic bank, usually what does it do? It will buy that car, own it, and then sell it to you as a customer for that car. So that transaction that is between the original car owner to the financial company or the Islamic bank to the new owner, that transaction can be one of two. Number one is that the actual bank owns the car, pays the stamp duty for owning the car, and then a registration card comes out with the name of the bank, and then that bank actually sells it again to the new owner by installments. And usually what does the bank do is put sort of a mortgage on the car to preserve their right, that if that person was not able to pay installments for a certain period of time, there will be some settlement where the car will be sold and the bank will take their money and the person will take the rest of the money. That's another scenario that happens. Recently, they started thinking about making it easier to reduce the cost of the double stamp duty, because if the person owns the car, after the bank owns the car and the bank will pay the stamp duty and then the person will pay stamp duty, that's two stamp duties, and if the car is, for example, $20,000, $30,000, that's a big amount. That's why the scholars said if the bank, the Islamic bank or the Islamic finance, purchased the car, sent the money, identified the VIN number and the chassis number, and then sold that car directly to the customer, even though there was no new registration card with the name of the bank on it, but the bank already paid the money, identified the VIN number and the chassis number of that car, it owned it even though it did not have a card with the name of the bank. So the scholar said with this case, it is acceptable to actually buy the car with one stamp duty rather than two stamp duties, because the Islamic bank or the Islamic finance already paid, identified, meaning that they owned it. It's just a matter of a paperwork to be able to register it in the name of the bank. So the bank actually, the Islamic bank, sold it while owning it, not before owning it, because they already paid. Now, with these two scenarios, which is the 100% halal scenarios, the first scenario that the bank already have a car yard, or the bank actually buys the car, pay the money, and then transfer it with one stamp duty. With that scenario, there need to be known that there is no penalty on any late payments. And that's one of the criteria that needs to be understood here, between the difference between the Islamic finance and the commercial or non-Islamic finance, is that with the Islamic finance, there is no penalty on late payments. No way. Otherwise, it will become like a riba. Whereas the non-Islamic finance, if you are late for any payment, they will put interest on you, and that's how it is one of the differences, as we are going to discuss inshallah today. So even if I go, for example, nowadays, they will say that these cars are interest-free, directly from the company, like from Toyota. And then you go there in order to buy the car, and it's actually not directly from Toyota. There is a financial company in the middle that pays Toyota and then collect from you by installments. And that company will say to you, it's a 48 months interest-free. But the problem with that transaction, and it's true, it's 40 months interest-free transaction, and so if you paid within these 48 months, there is no interest incurred on you. But the problem happens if you did not manage to pay the whole thing within the 48 months. It will incur interest on you. And that's where that contract, even though it says it's interest-free contract, inside it, it will say the penalty if you did not manage to pay by the 48 months. They will not ask you within the 48 months, but after the 48 months, they will recalculate the whole interest from the day one that you have taken that loan, because it becomes like a transaction, because you have, for example, you are buying from Toyota, and then the finance company, and then you. So the deal is not going to be signed between you and the Toyota, but the deal will be signed between you and the finance company, as if you have taken a loan and you are returning back the loan. And that's where it is unacceptable in that way. I know that for some reason, at some stage in Adelaide, actually Toyota sold cars directly from them by installments, which happened I think once, and they did not repeat it. The rest are all through a third-party finance company, which brings it back to the same concept of riba, because it's just funding the money, they're giving you the money to buy for the car, and then returning back the money by installments, even if it is zero free, but after some time they will incur the interest. So you are signing a contract to accept to pay interest if you are not going to pay within that period of time. So the right way is the bank buy the car and own it, then sell it to the customer. To pay for the car and identify the car by the VIN and chassis number is considered buying, so doesn't require ownership card to be issued. As we said, Imam Malik does not require hand ownership except in food and money exchange. So Imam Malik says that you can own something and sell it even though you did not own it by your hand, if it's an object, except if it's a food or exchange money. If the bank paid for the car and identified the VIN, then it's considered the bank ownership, even if it is not registered in the name of the bank, and then the bank can sell that car with a murabaha, but it needs to be fixed price. Saying, for example, I will sell it to you for 48 months, This is the amount you are going to pay. Late, not late, there is nothing going to change the price of that car. So the price of that car is fixed, and that's the differentiator between the halal and the halal. Any question about the car? Buying a car by installments?
I have a question about late installment fees.
Yes.
So what, for example, electricity bills, if you don't pay it on time, you incur late fees as well.
So there is a difference between these late fees and the late fees that are from the car installments. The difference is that usually it is for example, the electricity bill, it is administration fees. Because of course, in order to follow up and speak to the person, these are money, because these are the times of people. So they usually put a fixed price or fixed amount on the late fees, saying for example, it will add $50, $60. Why? They calculate, for example, in employee, electricity, phones, and so on, they will be costing this amount to catch up and follow up with the person who is late in his payment. If it's fixed, no issues. But if it is a percentage, then it is interest. So you cannot put late fees as interest as percentage, because it's interest. But you can put, for example, late fees as a small amount as administration fees for the people to follow up with the late payments. Okay? Any other question about the car? So next is buying and selling online. In general, buying and selling is acceptable in Islam. You can buy and you can sell whatever is halal product. Buying should be from known companies to avoid cheating. Sometimes we'll have companies who are scams and they are cheating. So buying from them is not permissible if we have doubt that this is going to be a scam and we will lose our money. From the Islamic purposes and essentials is to protect the wealth. So we have to make sure that we put the money in the right place. We cannot put the money in a place where we assume that this is the right place, but it's actually a scam or it's a fraud, or these are just cheating people. If the goods exist with the same details as per the advertisements, then the transaction is correct. Sometimes you will see something online, you buy it, it arrives, and it's different than what you bought online. So that transaction is wrong. And that's why nowadays with the new technology, we need really to go into these reviews before we buy. And that's part of our responsibility as Muslims towards using our wealth, that we need to check how reliable the person is or the company is. In Islam, it is called the buying of the absent and is correct. So this is the terminology of the Islamic transaction when you buy something you don't see. This is called the buying of the absent, which is bay' al-ghaib. This is acceptable in Islam if the transaction is with a trusted or trustworthy company, and if the product ended up to be the true product that you paid money for. If the goods are not there, this is called the credit contract. And as the object arrives with the same descriptions mentioned in the advertisement, then this transaction is correct. Sometimes someone will open up an online market to sell stuff, and people will buy from him, but he does not have the products. He's actually buying them from another source. So what he does is he opens his company, online selling company, he doesn't own any product, and then put all of these products. People will buy from him. As soon as someone places the purchase order, he will straight away buy that product and ship it to his house. As long as the description of the item that was purchased has been delivered, is correct online, and is delivered the same, then that transaction is correct. And there is no issue with starting this business and selling goods, even though you don't own it, by buying them from a different party and selling them to the customers. Any questions about buying and selling online? Yes.
Does the good have to be physically present? Like, for example, a perishable good or something they're like selling online, and like they haven't made it yet, but you can put the order in, but they don't have the physical good itself.
So you are a factory, for example,
Yeah.
and you are selling something, and you are saying in your advertisement that it will take this amount of days since you submit your order. Then that's fine. So long as when it's manufactured, it was sent the same criteria, the same characteristics of what has been advertised online was passed to that person. Okay? Yes?
So you as a buyer, do you have any issue with that if you receive the wrong item, if you decide to keep it, so you have problem on that?
So if you receive the wrong item and you agreed on that, that's your choice, that's fine. But it's meant to be that you are not being cheated by buying that. So you should not accept that you are cheated by buying an item and you receive a different item. Okay? Or not the same characteristics. All right? We will discuss now the difference between the commercial banks and the Islamic banks. Lots of people say that it's all the same. Islamic banks, what's the difference? They are taking percentage and the commercial banks are taking percentage. So what are the differences actually between the commercial banks and the Islamic banks? Allah Azza wa Jal said in the Quran, ذلك بأنهم قالوا إنما البيع مثل الربا وأحل الله البيع وحرم الربا. That is because they say trade is no different than interest, but Allah has permitted trading and forbidden interest. As if it's like these people who are saying commercial banks are not different than the Islamic banks or the Islamic transactions, as if they are saying trading is like interest. So that's unacceptable to say that the Islamic banking is similar like the commercial banking. And this was a response for people who said that trade is like interest. So that verse was revealed for people who said at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they said to the companions that trade is like interest. So there is no difference. So Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed that verse. Some ignorant at the time of the companions argued with some companions. They said they wanted to confront them. So they asked them, if you sold me a camel that you bought for $10, for example, and you sold it to me for $11, over 1 year, is this permissible? They said, yes, it is permissible. They said, okay, then why not you sell me the $10 for $11 over a year? So they made actually the money as the good or the object that is being sold, which is the interest. So the money cannot be the object that you buy and sell. And this is what happens in the interest. The interest is you give $10, you take $11. So there is no such thing in the middle to be purchased. It's only the money which is the object. So Allah referred that halal and haram is from Him. So the first answer we say, as Allah Azza wa Jal said that interest is haram, that's it. He's the one who has the right to say to us what is halal and what is haram, and we submit to that. So Muslims always should say, I listen and obey, and they never touch the haram. Selling is for something that benefits people and they work in it. So when we are speaking about, for example, we are selling cars. It's benefiting people and there is work in car. Like manufacturing cars, there is work in there. We are selling chairs. It's for the benefit of people and there is work in manufacturing chairs. So when it comes to money, It is for benefiting people, but there is no work in it. Nobody is going to start manufacturing money. The money is the money and it's not going to change. So this is one of the key things why the interest and how to identify the interest from the non-interest. Something that will cause the economy to move and people to benefit from it. So we cannot just use the money for its own because it's not going to circulate between people and it's not going to move the economy. If I am, for example, buying a chair by installments, then I'm going to move the economy because the economy is going to depend on the manufacturing of the chairs. And so people are going to benefit from that because people are going to work in that company, and the economy is going to move, and people will earn money, and then will spend. So the whole economy of the country is going to move. Whereas when you are just giving money and returning back money, there is no movement within the community for that money. It's just that person who took the money and returned the money with interest. Then Allah said that there is oppression in interest, which refer to many things. Allah Azza wa Jal said in the Quran that there is oppression. Allah does not accept oppression. What is the oppression in interest? They are different. On individual basis, the one who is going to be paying the interest is being oppressed. On community basis, there is a social problem that will happen, that people will become in debt, and the debt is going to increase, and the burden is going to increase, and it's all a complex oppression that happens to the ones who deal with interest. The bank will give you money for a certain period with certain interest, and he will say to you, so this is the amount for a certain period of time, this is the amount of interest that you are going to pay. Whereas the Islamic bank, there is always something in the middle. The Islamic bank should not give you dollars in hand. No Islamic bank around the world will give you money in hand because it becomes like interest. The Islamic bank or the Islamic finance should give you something, sell you something. So that thing that the bank will sell you is a car, a house, anything that you want to buy from the bank. And that's a huge difference between the banks, the commercial banks, and the Islamic banks or the Islamic finance. That there is something in the middle that's being sold to the customer, and the customer was not given cash. As soon as the customer is given cash, that's interest. That's unacceptable. In, for example, the Muslim world, there is what they call qard hasan, but it's just limited, where people go to the Islamic banks and borrow money. I remember, for example, back in Jordan, there used to be a qard hasan up to, in our nowadays Australian currency, up to $3,000. So you go, you say, I need $3,000, qard hasan. They will give you the $3,000 cash, but you return them $3,000. Nothing more, nothing less. And you sign a contract that even if you are late, no fee will be incurred on that late payment. So this is what is called qard hasan. So when it comes to actual money, you cannot get any dollar in addition. They were built of the Islamic contracts, while the commercial banks built on interest contracts. So the Islamic banks are built on Islamic contracts. We have lots of types of Islamic contracts. We have over 50 types of Islamic contracts, transactions. And Islamic banks are built on these 50 contracts. And so each one of them is different than the other. We hear about only maybe 2 or 3 of them. We hear about murabaha, which is buying the share, putting some profit, selling it by installments. This is called murabaha, whether it's a house, whether it's a car. We hear about hire to purchase, which is the bank will, for example, buy the car and then will lease it out to you, and you are paying rent plus on top some money. So by the end of the period, you already paid the rent and paid the fee, and then the bank will transfer the ownership to you. We hear about mudaraba, we hear about musana'a, muzara'a. All of these are transactions, Islamic transactions that are acceptable in Islam. And the Islamic banks actually deal with these. Like the Islamic banks, someone will come to them and say, I want to open a factory. I don't have money, but I have the skills. So they will come and say to him, all right, we will be partners with you. So we'll put the money, you will put maybe some money, and you will put and they will go with musana'a, or they will go with mudaraba. Someone will have, for example, a piece of land and doesn't have money to plant it. He will come to the Islamic bank and say, I have that piece of land, I have no money to plant. They will say, yes, we will come as partners, as muzara'a, and they will be partners with him, and they will have that Islamic contract. So the Islamic banking, unfortunately, it is some people, they just try to limit it to buying houses or to buying cars, but actually it's way, way bigger than that. Actually, a builder can come to the Islamic bank and say, I want to develop lands, and I want, for example, to buy a land and to build it and to sell houses. And the Islamic bank can come and become a partner with him, and with a different Islamic transaction. So the Islamic banking is built on all of these Islamic contracts, whereas the commercial banks are built on one transaction, which is interest. You take money, you give me money with addition. You put money in my account, I will give you addition. And the difference is what the commercial banks, they make money from. So there is a huge difference in here. The commercial banks are built on capitalism, while Islamic banks built on Islamic economy. And so with the commercial banks, the rich people will become richer, whereas in the Islamic banks, the Islamic bank actually is helping people who are struggling to become wealthy and to pick up. Main transaction is to borrow money with interest, while Islamic bank prohibits interest. Sometimes people will say they are the same. No, they are not the same. Like in the Islamic bank, when you put your money there and you put it in an account, for example, what will happen is they will use that money for these Islamic transactions and contracts. And they will say, we will give you, for example, 55%. But by the end of the year, we are going to count how much the contribution that we have taken from your account in all of these Islamic transactions, how much money that this transaction made, so what's your portion of it, and if there is something additional, we'll top it up for you by the end of the financial year. And this is what they do with the Islamic banking. Whereas the commercial bank, that's it. It's fixed price. If you put money, this is what you take. If you take money, this is what you need to pay. So the deal is only the money, whereas the Islamic banks, the deal is a project, or the deal is an object, purchases, and so on. When taking money, put in saving account, which is a loan without interest to the bank. Actually, the saving account is a loan to the bank, but a loan without interest. So meaning that you are putting the money, you are loaning the money to the bank, but you are not taking interest on that loan. That's why our savings accounts, we don't have interest on them. So this is actually the reality of the saving accounts. Whereas the rest of the accounts are interest-based. So the rest of the accounts, actually, when you put in a different like credit accounts or any other accounts. You put the money there, you are loaning the money to the bank, and the bank, as if he's borrowing that money from you, and will pay you interest on that money, whereas the saving account is not. While the Islamic bank has accounts either interest-free or built on mudaraba, murabaha, or built on any of these. That's why when we used to put our money in the Islamic banks, they will say to us, where do you want to put your money? Which account do you want to put? You want to put it in the mudaraba, you want to put it in the murabaha, you want to put it on where, and where this is where they will use it and actually invest it for you. Normal banks are not allowed to go into trades as they are licensed to loan money or for interest, while Islamic banks has all Islamic contracts, around 50 Islamic contracts. So normal banks are not allowed to do any transactions. Maybe sometimes they will have the license to do that, but normally they don't. There is no product in the normal bank, while the Islamic bank, there is a product in the middle. We said a car, we said, for example, a house, a land, or anything. There is no late fees in the Islamic banks, where there is in the normal bank. And these are the key differences. If you want to come and someone will say, oh, this is an Islamic finance. Okay, show me. There are criteria to be acceptable. Is there late fees? Oh, yes, there are late fees. Why do you take late fees? The late fees, oh, we take them, and this is from the Islamic finance in Australia. We take them, and when then we donate them. Because if we don't take late fees, then people are not going to pay on time. That's not acceptable in Islam. There should be no late fees. It should be flat, the same amount that was agreed upon being paid, and no late fees at all.
But if they did like fixed late fees, would that be allowed?
If they said that if you are late and we had to call you, after 3 months we will incur $50 on you because there is an employee that is going to spend some time, then that's fine, as we said. But usually what happens, and even in Australia here, it's a percentage. So the late fees are percentage, and even if they put it as a specific amount, it's a big amount, and it's from the beginning of the day one when you are late, they will incur the late fees. And unfortunately, even they say that the interest is changeable because of the market, how much is the inflation in the market, and all of these affect actually the interest rate in the country, and they change it by the interest rate change. So these are the differences between the Islamic banks and the commercial banks. Yes?
I just have a question regarding the example, with the builder, for example. They have the skills and the bank wants to partner up with them. What if the venture fails and like the bank puts in the money?
So there will be, that's why, for example, the Islamic banks, sometimes they lose money in their investments. And that's the type of trade that is halal. Because halal trade is not always making money. Sometimes you will make money, sometimes you will not. And that is a classification of a halal trade. So there is no issue with that they fail. That's fine. There will be a guarantee, for example, for the bank who have put the money, for example, to purchase the land and to put all of this. But if it did not work, then this is the mudaraba. The mudaraba is, for example, I have $100,000. I came to someone and I say, you have that skill. I will put that 100,000. I will start a business. You take half of the profit. I take half of the profit. My contribution is the money. Your contribution is the skills. But where is the problem that arises here? Is if I am putting $100,000 and he is putting his skills, he will work. If we make profit, it will be divided into half. Half for me and half for him. Because he's contributing his skills, I'm contributing my money. If we lose, I will lose. And that's a mudaraba. But he cannot take wages. Did you understand this small detail that usually people in the mudaraba do not understand it? Like if I'm doing a mudaraba with someone, I'm putting my investment, and then he's putting his skills, He cannot take wages. He only can take from the profit. So he can only share with me his profit. That's all. The profit of the company. That's all. If he wants, for example, to take monthly payments in order to sustain himself, that's fine. It will be counted from his portion of the profit. That's fine. That's no issues with that. But whoever is entering into mudaraba, he's contributing his skills. So he doesn't get paid for his skills. He will take from the profit at the end. Shares, stocks, and currency trade. And this is a big...
I have a question for you, Mufran. For the banks that sell you a house or a car or an asset, once they sell it to you, can they also sell it on your behalf and just give you the money? For example, you agreed that you're buying a house from them for $150,000 over the next 5 years. But then once you sign the contract, they will sell the house on their own for $100,000 and give you the money. Does that work?
This is tahayul. This is cheating on Islam. This is what the people who wanted to take the interest actually made it. They put a fake object in the middle.
Because I heard some banks just give you the money, but they say they sold something for you.
Yes, this is called in Islam, Islamic finance, tawarruq. Tawarruq is, they will come to you and they will say, oh, we will buy, usually it used to happen with the oil. Not the oil which is the ground oil, but the frying oil. It used to happen with the frying oil. They will say, okay, we will buy for you 2 tons of oil. That will be $20,000. We bought the oil for you, his oil. Now we will be selling it on your behalf. Yes, we sold the oil for you. You owe us $20,000 for that. We sold it on your behalf, and you need to pay that back in installments to us. He did not own anything. He did not do anything. This is called tawarruq. And some minor number of scholars, they accept that as there is a product in the middle. But it's actually, the majority of the scholars, they say this is cheating and this is not acceptable. Shares, stock market, and currency trading. This is called the secondary market. Why? Because the primary market is when you have a product you are selling and buying. Secondary market, there is no product. What do you have? You have shares, you have stocks, you have currency. There is nothing, no product actually that you are buying and selling. It's called the secondary market because there is no actual product that is sold other than a paper that confirms ownership of shares or financial bonds or any of that. So there is no product. And shares and all of these financial bonds and whatever is being traded in the market is of 3 types. Halal, if the company is halal. So if the company is selling and buying halal stuff, then the shares are halal. The financial bonds inside it is halal. Everything that is related, even if it's the unit trusts are halal. Everything inside it, because sometimes they will sell unit trusts, they will sell shares, they will sell financial bonds, they will say anything inside that company, then all of these are halal to buy. Because they will use that money in order to manufacture the product and sell it, for example. And that's fine. And so if you are buying these and then selling them, that's 100% halal, because the product behind that share is halal. The second type of these shares or unit trusts is haram. If the product behind that company is haram. then that drives the whole share into haram level. So it's not allowed. Examples: shares in the insurance companies, or shares in the alcohol companies. Any type of these shares is haram. Okay? Or shares in the banks. It's haram. Commercial banks. Now the third type is the ones that contain halal and haram. For example, the product that that company is manufacturing and selling is halal. But that company deals with interest. For example, they are manufacturing furniture and they are selling furniture. But the company actually put the money in the bank, take loans from the bank, put money in the bank and take interest on that. And usually these companies, they will put the money in the banks and take interest. And at the end of the financial year, they distribute profit on the shares from that money. It's coming to their profit, the overall profit, but usually they keep that money in the bank in order to take interest, to use that money as a liquid money to pay for their investors or the shareholders. So that type of shares is mixed. It has halal in it and it has haram. What can we do with that? The best to do with that is, if you are able to access the financial statement at the end of the year of that company and see what is the percentage of the profit that is coming from the interest. Supposedly it was 5%. 5% of the profit came from the interest, whereas 10% came from the trading, manufacturing and selling. Then what if they give you, for example, by the end, they give you, for example, profit from dividend at the end of the financial year. That dividend, 1/3 of it is haram and 2/3 is halal. Why? Because the income of that company, 2/3 of it came from halal source, which is manufacturing, and 1/3 came from the interest. So the scholar said, if you are able to identify the portion that involved interest, so when you get the dividend at the end of the year, for example, then you need to remove that portion which is related to the interest. But if you are selling the shares and you are making money from the shares, that's where it becomes tricky. Because you bought the shares and then you sold the shares, you made some profit. So you need to look at the profit that you took from that and try to calculate something related to the non-halal portion of that profit that you are taking. Currency exchange, some are halal, some are haram. And so there is a big problem with that at the moment. Like, for example, we all know about the Forex. And the Forex is two types. One type is halal Forex and one type if it's haram Forex. Haram Forex is when, for example, I come and I put $1,000, I want to enter into the market and buy, for example, different currencies and sell them. What happens with the haram Forex is you put a 1,000, the haram Forex company will allow you to trade with 10,000. So they will give you 9,000 on top of the 1,000 that you have put as an investment in order to start trading, and they will say to you, trade with the 10,000. The profit that comes on the 10,000, doesn't come on the 1,000. So you are trading using others' money. But what happens if you are losing? The loss will be from your portion only. And as soon as you lose all of your money, the 1,000, they will close the account. They will sell the shares, they will take their money, and you lose everything. So the whole money becomes from 1,000 to 0. They will close the account, done. Sell all the currencies in order to return back their money, and you are out. This is a haram forex. Whereas if you are able to trade and buy currencies and sell with your own money only, not with the money that was given to you, then that is a halal forex. And you can actually go online and start buying and selling currencies and making money from that. That should not be an issue. The issue comes when you are trading with more than they will give you a margin. This is where the issue becomes, and it becomes haram. Any question about the currencies and shares and stock market and unit trusts and all of these?
Okay, I just want to ask if we have like any actual halal bank in Australia here.
Until now, no. There is something that already started, which is the Islamic Bank of Australia, but we haven't seen anything coming from there, any products yet.
But they are 100% halal?
We don't know. We don't know.
Is it wrong to trade with currencies that may be oppressing Muslims, like for example, the Israel currency, for example?
No.
Is that like a thing that?
No. It should not be an issue. Because even there, they use that currency. So in Palestine, for example, they use that currency.
So you mentioned how are we supposed to calculate the interest on capital gains from shares?
So this is where you need to know more into the finances of that company and see what is involved in all of these transactions inside. And if there is a portion that is involved, if you don't know, you just do ijtihad and say, usually these companies, this is the percentage of what they gain, and take it out. And maybe a little bit more to be sure that your income that you have gained from the share trading is halal. This is what the scholars say. Usually with these, it's tricky because you cannot identify 100%. So they will say to you, do ijtihad. What do you think the percentage? Top it up a little bit, and inshallah, whatever is left for you is halal.
How do you get rid of it?
You get rid of it in any way, like put it in something that is disrespectful, and like toilets and toilet papers and something like that, and donate it to the masjid, donate it to anywhere.
I spoke to someone who told me that he always will money and count like the interest and just throw it on the floor.
Throw it on the floor?
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, he should not do. Or he should tell us where the floor that he's throwing the money on, so we can put it in the right place. So we can actually use that money in the right place. It cannot be given to Muslims to eat food from it. It cannot be used to respected things like building a masjid or something. But it can be used for something that is disrespected. Okay? I think I will stop here at this. If there is any question.
So in that case, if you use it in something that is disrespectful, you don't want any like reward in that?
You will not. You will ask Allah not to be blamed on that.
Just with the savings account in a bank, it's like a loan without an interest. But sometimes the bank would use the funds that you put in for other stuff also, right?
It's of course this is the case, and that's why some people justify saying, anyways, you are putting the money in the bank is using your money to loan it to others and take interest on it. Why don't you take the interest and then donate it out? So the intention from the beginning becomes that you are accepting that interest, and that's where it becomes a big question mark. So even though they are doing it, we should not do it. We don't have any other option here in Australia to put our money except in a commercial bank. So the least that we can do is put it in a saving account, and that's it. All right? جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.